hinder me, thou fool. No living man may hinder me. Then Mary heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Dernhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. But no living man am I, who look upon a woman. Eowyn I am, Eowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Begone, if you not be deathless, for living or dark undead, I will smite you if you touch him. The winged creature screamed at her, but the ring-wraith made no answer, and was silent, as if in sudden doubt. Very amazement for a moment conquered Merry's fear. He opened his eyes, and the blackness was lifted from them. There, some paces from him, sat the great beast, and all seems dark about it, and above it loomed the Nazgul, Lord, like a shadow of despair. A little to the left, facing them, stood she whom he had called Dernhelm, but the helm of her secrecy had fallen from her, and her bright hair, released from its bonds, gleamed with pale gold upon her shoulders. Her eyes, grey as the sea, were hard and fell, and yet tears were on her cheek. A sword was in her hand, and she raised her shield against the horror of her enemy's eyes. Eowyn it was, and Dernhelm also, for in Merry's mind flashed the memory of the face that he saw at the riding from Dunharrow, the face of one that goes seeking death, having no hope. Pity filled his heart and great wonder, and suddenly the slow-kindled courage of his race awoke. He clenched his hand. She should not die, so fair, so desperate. At least she should not die alone, unaided. The face of the enemy was not turned towards him, but still he hardly dared to move, dreading lest the deadly eye should fall upon him. Slowly he began to crawl aside. But the black captain, in doubt and malice intent upon the woman before him, heeded him no more than a worm in the mud. Suddenly the great beast beat its hideous wings, and the wind of them was foul. Again it leapt into the air, and swiftly it fell upon Downy Eowyn, shrieking, striking with beak and claw. Still she did not blench. Maiden of the Rohirrim, child of kings, slender but as a steel blade, fair yet terrible. A swift stroke she dealt, skilled and deadly. The outstretched neck she clove asunder, and the hewn head fell like a stone. Backward she sprang as the huge shape crashed to ruin. Vast wings outspread, crumpled on the earth, and with its fall the shadow passed away. A light fell about her, and her hair shone in the sunrise. Out of the wreck rose the Black Rider, tall and threatening, towering above her, with a cry of hatred that stung the very ears like venom. He let fall his mace. Her shield was shivered in many pieces, and her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over her like a cloud, and his eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. But suddenly he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and his stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Merry's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk and pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. "Eowyn! Eowyn!" cried Merry. Then, tottering, struggling up with the last strength, she drove her sword between crown and mantle, and the great shoulders bowed before her. The sword broke, sparkling to many shards. The crown rolled away with a clang. Eowyn fell forward upon her fallen foe. But lo, the mantle and hauberk were empty. Shapeless they now lay on the ground, torn and tumbled, and a cry went up into the shuddering air and faded into a shrill wailing, passing away into the wind. A voice, bodiless and thin, that died and was swallowed up, and was never heard again in that age of this world. And there stood Meriadoc, the hobbit, in the midst of the slain, blinking like an owl in the daylight, for tears blinded him, and through a mist he looked at Eowyn's fair head as she lay and did not move. He looked on the face of the king, fallen in the midst of his glory. For Snowmane in his agony had rolled away from him again, yet he was the bane of his master. Then Merry stooped and lifted his hand to kiss it, and lo, Theoden opened his eyes, and they were clear, and he spoke in a quiet voice, though laboured. "Farewell, Master Hobbiton," he said. "My body is broken. I go to my fathers, and even in their mighty company I shall now not be ashamed. I felled the black serpent, a grim morn and a glad day, and a golden sunset." Merry could not speak, but wept anew. "Forgive me, Lord," he said at last, "if I broke your command, and yet have done so no more in your service than to weep at our parting." The old king smiled. "Grieve not, it is forgiven. Great heart will not be denied. Live now in blessedness, and when you sit in peace with your pipe, think of me. For now never shall I sit with you, Mesudel, in Meduseld, as I promised, or listen to your herb lore." He closed his eyes, and Merry bowed beside him.